The Inspired Collective is where real talk meets meaningful stories for women in business. Each episode features candid conversations with inspiring entrepreneurs, creatives, and industry leaders who are rewriting the rules and building with purpose. If you're navigating business, sales, networking, or creative entrepreneurship, this is your go-to space for connection, growth, and bold ideas. We share the why behind the work and the lessons learned along the way. Whether you're building a brand, leading a team, or dreaming up your next big move, the Inspired Collective is here to fuel your fire and remind you your voice and vision matter. You can expect stories that educate, conversations that empower, and a community that gets it.
All right. Welcome back to the Inspired Collective. I am Karli.
And this is Renee.
And we are so excited you have made it here to episode number 3, where we are talking all about Small Talk 101 Part 2. How you doing, Renee?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. How's your day going?
You know, it has been a day, but to kind of fill everybody else in, I recently started a job where I am now remote, working from home with some travel mixed in. And this week has been a non-travel week. So I'm still getting used to, I'm a 5 a.m.er, so I'm up at 5 to work out. I try to put it in the beginning of my day, but working from home has really thrown that for a loop. And I was a little bit late to one of my meetings this morning. So I don't know if you can see, I'll stand up for you here. But I'm wearing my pajama bottoms still.
Oh, I like those. They're flannel. Cute.
I'm fully dressed for the record, but I am wearing, my business top, fully made up from the waist up.
Yeah, she's not naked or anything. She has a shirt on, y'all. I know you can't see her, but
yeah. I didn't have a chance to fully change. So to answer your question, my day's going great. It's just a little squirrely.
yeah, it happens. It happens. So did you work out and then just put your pajamas back on, or you just didn't make it?
Oh no, I didn't make it this morning.
Yeah,
that would have been ambitious for a Monday.
I'm just glad I'm glad you still have pants on. That's all we can ask for.
Yes, that's true. I mean, that's true. I didn't know we were speaking today, so I wanted to come fully prepared. How's your day been?
Oh, it's been good. I am in the pits of getting my son ready for his new school. He is 5 and he's starting a new school. He's getting out of daycare and starting not kindergarten, but like a bridge program. And I've just been trying to get him ready. It has been a lot, and I'm having all the mixed mommy feelings. I cry and then I'm happy, and then I cry and then I'm happy. So, anyways,
I can imagine. I can't believe he's already 5.
I know, my baby. It's awful, but it's fine. I love him.
He also looks like the sweetest human. I haven't met him yet, but he seems adorable.
Oh, he can be. He can also ruin your day in a second. He can be very mean, but he's also very sweet. He's like a Sour Patch Kid. The definition of yeah. Yeah, the definition of a Sour Patch. Every time I see those commercials, I'm like, that is my kid. It's hilarious. Well, the last episode we definitely laughed, and we had some cringy moments, which we will probably continue to have for a while, guys. So thank you for bearing with us. But we talked a lot about what not to do when networking. And today we want to really talk about what you should do and how you really develop those relationships and build trust with the people that you're networking with. But first, we asked y'all to DM us some of your you can't sit with us moments. So let's dive into that. There was some good ones. We have 2 here we want to read to y'all, though. So Renee, you wanna kick us off and read us the first one?
Sure. Okay, let's pull it up. These were honestly, they had us laughing. So no offense to you laughing at your cringe moments, but that's
we're not gonna say names.
Yeah,
but we've also had our cringe. You can't laugh at yourself. What can you do, right?
True. No, we won't reveal the source, but we definitely have to share a couple of these. So I was at this industry mixer trying to be brave and quote unquote put myself out there or whatever. And I walk up to this woman in a killer blazer. We start chatting and I confidently say, "You look so familiar. Did we go to high school together?" She smiles politely and says, "I don't think so. I'm the keynote speaker."
Obviously from another state too, probably.
Yeah, probably. Probably another, cross industry too. Then instead of playing it cool, I panicked and said, "Oh, I mean, you look very academic. That sounds like something I would accidentally say. I excused myself to get a drink and immediately walked into a fern. 10 out of 10 would not recommend.
That's actually hilarious. Yeah, I've definitely had moments like that too, so I feel you.
Well, and then also you go to do like the leave of shame and then run into someone or spill your drink.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that is actually
Every time.
Yeah. Yeah, because how else would you exit something like that gracefully? There's no graceful exit to that.
Yeah.
Let's see. The second one we got. I once went to a networking happy hour and got nervous when it was my turn to introduce myself. So naturally, I panicked and said I was the COO of a rapidly scaling boutique agency. I was a freelance social media manager for one client, my mom. And I turned to someone. Then someone asked me what a boutique agency meant, and I just blurted out, vibes and visuals, mostly strategy. It got worse when they asked me for my business card, and I had to say, I'm rebranding right now, so I don't have one. Pretty sure I sprinted out before the end.
Honestly.
Oh my gosh. That is actually really funny. But you know what? Kudos to you, girl, for like making yourself a COO out of the gate. I'm impressed.
No kidding. I feel like that with that, you got to think of, I wouldn't in this situation, but you got to think of the follow-up questions. I feel like I'd be too scared to do that.
Yeah. I mean, for a long time, I used to say, oh, I'm a wedding. I don't actually introduce myself as a wedding planner anymore, but I used to like refer to myself as a wedding planner. And I would get a lot of questions, but I like COO of a rapidly scaling boutique agency, because you know what? You only need one more client and then you are rapidly scaling.
There you go. And it could be anything, any industry. You don't have to give specifics.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you so much for submitting those stories. Those were fun to read. We want to kind of transition and relate back to what we talked about in episode 2 about how networking can feel so transactional. And I think just to touch on that a little bit and kind of focus more on the positive outlook of that, people feel when networking is transactional. They feel when you're only in it for something, you're only in it for the end goal. And I feel like we both have been in those situations where it just feels icky. I feel like, not to keep talking about the event industry because I know that this is applicable for a lot of industries, but when people don't take the time to get to know you, but they still make the ask, they want the free stuff, they want the connection, but they're not also willing to meet you on your level and put in the work. I feel like that just gives, it makes you feel icky.
It's robotic. It's. I think that's a really great way to put it. Is it's like when you're talking to someone and you're only in it for yourself, it feels like you're a robot, and you just go into a spiel, and it's like I actually really hate elevator pitches. I think that's sort of like the most. Well, I say I hate. I think there's a time and place for them, but I feel like the problem is people use them in the wrong situations, in the wrong places, and I feel like when you're having a conversation with someone and you just go, I feel like a great example of this actually is when, let's say, like cold pitch emails. There's a difference between a cold pitch email where someone is emailing you. Let's say that you own a business or you sell something, or you're on the receiving end of a sales email, and they email you and they're like, hello, without your name. They don't input your name, and they just go right into their pitch of like why you need to buy from them or why you need what they're selling or why you need to hire them, but they've done no research on you and they've done no due diligence to know not only about you, but what your business looks like, right? Like I literally just automatically delete those emails. I don't even look at them. If someone has taken the time to do research and they talk about things that they have like seen on our website or work that we've posted on Instagram or just anything personal, even if I'm not interested, I will still take the time to respond to them because they were respectful and took the time to pour into me first. And I think that's the same thing when it comes to like IRL in real life, right? Like people want that personal connection and they want to feel heard and seen. And so if you're just going at it and it just feels very transactional or you're not listening, like we talked about in the last episode, you're just like you're aloof and you're not really there and paying attention, then it feels robotic and transactional.
I agree. I feel like you have to have some quality in the way that you're reaching out to people. And I know that you said that you don't really like elevator pitches. I agree in the example that you mentioned, but I also feel like they can be so helpful um, when you're presenting yourself in networking situations. And I say that take that with a grain of salt, because they can, even verbally, can feel very robotic and cold.
Mm-hmm.
But having an idea of what you want to say and how you want to present yourself or your product or your brand, how you're
Mm-hmm.
representing your brand is so important. So I feel like elevator pitches, yay and nay, but you have to use them in the right way.
I think you do. And so I guess I like having like bullet points of how you want to sell yourself as opposed to an entire like pitch about yourself. So for example, like if someone says, let's say you sell lingerie, right? Like let's say you have a lingerie company and someone comes up to you and they say, "Hey, what do you do for a living? Tell me about your business." You could say something like, I help women feel confident in their bodies, and then ask a question back. And
Ooh.
it gets them like it gets them thinking, right? Like they want to know more, and you're intriguing them, and you're dangling carrots to continue that conversation instead of just spending 30 seconds to a minute just like word vomiting everything you do, right? Like, so there's a difference. Like, it's still kind of an elevator speech, it's just a different way of looking at it.
Well, you're by wording it in that way, you're evoking an emotion versus stating a fact per se.
Mm-hmm.
And that, especially painting a picture for a product or a brand, goes so much farther than the what.
Yes, which I know is not really what we're talking about, but that's just like how you can use use your elevator pitch, but like kind of sprinkle it in, or like sprinkle it out, spread it out instead of there's those word isms that we were talking about earlier.
It just kind of word vomits out of our brain.
Yeah, like what am I trying to say right now?
I mean, you said it isn't necessarily applicable. I think that it is, because I feel like that kind of ties back into the whole networking, small talk 101. Similar to how we spoke in the last episode about how negative impacts or negative first impressions can make such an impact on you, so can that strong, bold, positive impact that people remember when they think of you, or when they need, to buy lingerie, or when they're, something that I also relate to this is in the medical field, when we think about the doctors and specialists that we want to see. That is based so much on positive feedback from people that and positive experiences, and that's where referrals come from. So I think yes, it is all kind of related in a family.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is related. And I just think that like being able to have your elevator pitch, quote unquote elevator pitch, I'm making air quotes, you can't see that right now. But being able to divvy it up and sprinkle it through conversations instead of just going all in and throwing it all out there at one time.
I agree. It's all the foundations of building that relationship, building that community of people. I think, one of the things that's a hot topic, just kind of in the sales field right now, I feel, is what to do when you don't immediately see a return on the networking and the relationships that you're trying to build. If you've known this client for forever and they're not necessarily sending you the business that you think they will, or they're not connecting you with the people that you think they will, I think oftentimes the reaction is so much to say, well, tried, it's not there, moving on. When I think on the flip side, spending time nurturing, building that genuine connection, return comes from the most unlikely of places.
It really does. Renee, I'll say I feel like you're really good at developing long-term relationships. So what advice would you give someone trying to do that, say that they're like trying to network and get out there? Like, and they're new to networking, how would you suggest that they go about starting to build the foundations to have those long-term relationships?
I think for me, just talking about being, newly in the Houston market, really focusing on networking to connect, not networking to receive, if that really makes sense at all. And what do I mean by that? I think for myself, I wanted to meet as many people as I could. I wanted to be able to walk into a room, wherever it was, and immediately recognize someone. And, there's almost like a high when I could take someone and introduce them to someone else. And so I think when I had in my head, I wasn't necessarily networking to get someone in the door or to promote my venue that I worked at the time, or it wasn't self-serving in that way. It was really just to kind of spread the connection. The return on that was so much higher because it came from an authentic place, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think you're definitely like what I would call like a connector. Like you're really good at connecting other people with each other. And I think it's all about like long-term relationships are going to be a short-term gain every single time. And just keeping that in mind as you're out there networking and as you're at these events or as you're emailing people. Honestly, like we haven't really talked about emailing, but email conversations can sometimes start that networking journey. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a live event that you're networking with people. So just being very intentional and understanding that it's a long game. And if you don't get what you feel in that moment is your return on investment, like immediately, then keep going and keep building that relationship.
I agree. And that's, adding in the email element can make it so intentional. Whether you email them before and say, hey, I see that you're going to that networking event and would love to connect with you. So you're already setting that expectation. Or more often than not, we talked about the love-hate relationship of business cards, taking that and emailing them after and saying, hey, it was great to meet you. That right there just builds your community from the start.
Yeah, if you're actually, that's a great point. That is something to touch on is if you're able to get a list of attendees, let's say you are going to a networking event, and you're like trying to network with a certain group of people, or someone in a certain industry, definitely like look at that list and do research before you go. And like, I love that idea of emailing them first. I'm going to steal that before you even go to say, I'd love to connect with you at this event. I think it just shows great intentionality. And it's going to go a lot further in the long run.
Agreed.
Go ahead.
Talking about impact, it kind of, it makes them feel good. It makes them feel appreciated in their role and what they can kind of connect with you for.
Yeah, everyone likes to feel important. And the more important you can make someone feel, the better that relationship, the growth of that relationship will be. I also think that there's, so we've kind of touched on, like, if you don't get that immediate impact, that immediate quote unquote ROI, then don't give up, because honestly, some of your best business growth will come from the places that you like don't expect.
Ooh, that's true.
Like an example of this would be, like, let's say you're at like a local coffee shop and you're talking to the barista. Let's say you own an interior design business and you're at Starbucks and you're chatting with the barista and you just take the time. You're like, so tell me, are you in school right now? Or like, what are you doing? And they tell you, oh, I actually am graduating right now and I in marketing. And you just so happen to be looking for a social media marketing person. Like, that conversation that you just had, if you hadn't dug deeper or just asked the question, you wouldn't have known that, and they could be your next big hire that stays with you for the next 10 years.
I love that so much. I love the intentionality behind that and the humanity behind it. I mean, you don't have to be in a similar industry. It really pans across any industry. Mm-hmm. But even just taking the time to have a conversation with someone, not knowing how their day was, you could have just made it by asking how they were.
Mm-hmm.
or to your point, could kind of cross promote and get something out of it. So I think that's my favorite part about networking is that you almost don't know what can come out of it.
And sometimes you don't even know when you're networking. Like you can be networking. It doesn't
Ooh.
have to be a live event. Like I will tell you, and I learned this when I was in retail because I was always like scouting new people. Um, almost everywhere. I'm gonna say everywhere. I would say 80% of the time, if I'm out somewhere or I'm like at dinner or I'm shopping or wherever, I'm gonna start a conversation with someone because you just never know. Like you never know who your next employee could be. You never know who your next big client could be. I was just chatting with someone. We just moved, and I was talking to a gentleman a couple days ago. We were both walking at the same time, and he used to be um, in politics to like our local to Houston. So he was our local congressman. So I like had a great conversation with him, and like it just not that anything necessarily is going to come of it, but it was just great to like get to know someone, and you never know what come of that down the line.
Oh, absolutely. And I also feel like to be the best at what you do, you almost have to kind of glimpse into other industries.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're so um, interwoven,
Yes.
when it comes to budgets and trends and things like that, that I think it just makes you a better professional to kind of know and be curious about the other industries around you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have done a great job of creating an online platform. How do you find that networking looks in that capacity?
Networking like on social media.
Yeah, and how you connect with others since you don't have that opportunity to be face to face.
So I actually love sending voice memos to people instead of
Ooh,
like texting or instead of DMing, I guess, or like writing things out. I will send a personal. So if someone DMs me on Instagram, I will take the time to record a voice memo and send it to them. And it just is like it shows just a deeper level of like caring and just not to keep being repetitive, but just intentionality. And they get to hear your voice. They get to hear your excitement. They get to hear your inflection. They get to hear, you know, hear you. And I think it just like goes so much further. So I really love to do that. And then I always love to like hear from other people. So like just calls to action and asking other people to like tell me your story. I want to hear about you. Just always putting it back on the other person instead of just like what you can do for me. Like I want to hear from you and how I can help you. How can I best serve you?
I love that so much. And that just, again, kind of similar to what we've been saying this whole time. That's the foundation for the relationships over the long term and how
Mhm.
they aren't superficial. Yes, maybe they don't know who you are in your personal life, but that professional relationship is so much more intentional and really helps to build trust over time. Um, you talked about uh, making that network and kind of spreading the love across the industry, and that made me think of kind of how that has returned for me. I know that I said it was not self-serving and wasn't pushing a product at the time, but it made me think back to when I worked at the venue. For those of you that don't know Houston's hurricane history,
Oh yeah.
we experienced Harvey back in 2017, and while it wasn't a crazy wind event, it kind of just sat over the city and poured and dumped rain. And the city is very bayou heavy, and this venue happened to be on the banks of a bayou downtown and was first to flood when the bayou broke its banks. And it was a two-story venue, and the water was up past the ceiling from what we could tell on the first floor. And I worked for a family member at the time. We were about as small business as that could be, and didn't have a very extensive maintenance crew, sales crew, anything like that. We wore all of the same hats, but it was the people that I met through those connections of getting acclimated to a city and kind of just knowing all of the players that stepped up. They were the ones digging out the mud that had kind of, just been standing there for days, ripping out the carpet, that had been ruined. Did the first stages of remediation before the professionals got there. And to me, that, that wasn't there wasn't a dollar amount tied to that. There wasn't a sales goal that was made. There wasn't, any other quantification you want to throw out there. But to me, that network and that connection was everything in those moments.
It's just, yeah, I mean, that's a great example of just what like how far loyalty and respect goes when you really truly invest in relationships. Because if you had just had transactional relationships and you would just, go and like, I'm going to see how many people's hands I can shake in these 30 minutes, you would have never built those relationships, and you would have been doing that remediation yourself.
Mm-hmm. Which, for those remediators out there, that is a tough job.
Yeah.
So I think it's that. I think it's not only one of my favorite, why networking is so fun to me and why I enjoy it so much is that it extends beyond the business, and it's celebrating the tiny wins. It's stepping up and helping when there's a need, and not to, keep beating to death the same word, but it's relationships.
Yeah, but that's really what networking is, in whatever capacity you see it, whatever way you're networking, it all is tied back to relationships and how you build them and how you continue to like nurture them over time.
Absolutely.
I think something that's also really important to note is that, and you kind of touched on it a little bit in what you just said, but when you're building relationships, it's so important to, I'm going to say, like, be each other's woohoo girls, if you know the term woohoo girl, and celebrate each other's wins. Like, be there, even if it's something small. Like, if you have a friend, or you have a friend, or I always call friends who are networkers. I always call friends who are in a professional setting, like, friendors. If you have those people, like, if you see somebody that has a big, like, word vomiting right now, but if you see someone, a friend of yours that's had a win, celebrate that win. Like, say, you know what, girl, like, I saw you have been absent on social media for the last 6 months, and today you posted, like, good for you. I'm proud of you for putting yourself back out there. I know it's hard. Or even big things, or being there for each other in those little moments, and those like moments, or hard times in business and relationships. I think, kind of jumping ahead, Renee and I met several years ago now, and we really did not have our relationship did not start off where we were like sending each other business, which I know we've mentioned, and honestly, we never really sent each other a lot of business. So that was never what our relationship was about. But we really started to connect on a deeper level when we started to trust each other in celebrating those things and sharing those other things, those like down moments too. I'll let Renee talk a little bit more about that, but
I agree. And again, it's not that our relationship was fake or superficial. It was more surface level, and we didn't have that reason to connect beyond the networking, until I feel like I remember this moment specifically where it was kind of a turning point. I don't know if you have the same turning point in your head, but being both small business owners at the time, you share the woes, you share the wins. It's entrepreneurship,
but surface level generally.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship is not for the weary, but you definitely have that kind of relation to know what each other's going through. And I don't know exactly what caused me to do this day, or if it was just the way that our conversation was going, if I was inspired by the wine or what have you.
I actually don't think we had wine this day.
Oh, great. Even better. But I mean, there was no inciting incident that I recall. But I kind of turned a corner in the trust of our relationship at this point, that I remember expressing to you some frustrations that I was having. Our business had kind of reached a plateau and a very decisive point in our relationship. And I remember kind of talking to you about it and really word vomiting at the time. And in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be that negative oversharer that we try to avoid so much. But I think more than ever, it probably is the reason why we have decided to get closer and kind of go on this venture.
Yeah, I think we're like thinking about the same thing. I just to like, because you said something about you didn't want to be one of those negative overshares. To kind of circle back to that, when we're talking about that, like it is so important to have business friends that you can trust, because across industries specifically, like, you know, let's say you're a hairdresser, that you own a salon or you're a hairdresser, um, no one else is going to get what you go through like someone else who does what you do. And so having that close knit, those friends and those people that you can turn to is so important. So don't ever think that you can't share your experiences with other people, because you definitely can. What we're saying is just don't do it like, you know, the first 5 minutes you're meeting someone. And that just comes with that long game that we've talked about, right? Like when you've developed that relationship, those benefits come along with that. And that trust comes along with that.
Yeah, you make a good point. I guess the negative overshare is really something to be cognizant of in that first impression situation.
Mm-hmm.
We had, by this point, definitely built the foundation. So hopefully it didn't feel that way for you.
No, not at all. But I think it just, like I said, it deepens your relationships. And by her sharing first, I felt like I could share other things too. And so it just, you know, that like ping pong kind of effect took place. But is there any other, like, aside from you and I, are there any other relationships that you've had that you feel like was starting off, you didn't really realize what it was going to end up being? So a relationship that you've had that developed over time and turned into something bigger?
That's a great question. A lot of my friends have, over the years, have stemmed from initial industry relationships. I think it's harder. I won't say it's totally hard, but harder moving to a new city as a grown adult. Um, Friends and people that you see outside of work are so few and far between outside of a school setting or a college setting or anything like that. And so being able to kind of commiserate with people in the same industry led to a friendship outside of that. So a lot of my friends are in our industry and have connected through that, even though we're not directly referring each other all the time per se. I also think that connecting with as many people as you can when you step into leadership roles, when you step into managerial roles, when you are volunteering for associations, whether it's verbal or unspoken, kind of become that go-to person in your industry for connections. And so knowing all the players, I have an extensive list of caterers in the area. I'm not necessarily, as a rental company, booking caterers, but people come to us and ask and say, hey, who would you refer, and who can we connect with for this? And in the sales process, you're also working with so many people for a collaborative end goal. And so I think that's also unintentionally relationships that have kind of blossomed from nothing.
Mm-hmm. You brought something up I want to was which, so everyone knows, when you make a podcast, you have like outlines. We're not like scripted, but we have like bullet points of what we want to talk about. So I'm about to go off. I'm gonna say off script, for a lack of a better word. So Renee, you were very involved in a local organization for many, many years. She was the president. Do you feel like that level of a commitment within a particular organization is worth it? And if so, at what point in someone's career should they consider like stepping up or leveling up in that way?
I think that's a great question. And that really ties into my goals and networking. So again, moving to a new city, wanting to kind of build a foundation as far as I could, just not being the newest person in the room, knowing all the players in the game. One way of doing that was getting involved in my local organization. I started as marketing director. I kind of moved up through the ranks, eventually becoming president. And from a networking perspective, it was everything, because you, again, are kind of forcibly put in front of these people that maybe you wouldn't have been in front of before. And you are a constant face in the community that people associate with that association. From a leadership perspective, really learning how to work with like-minded people, more importantly, work with not so like-minded people, learning how to make those connections and be the connector for people, I think was just such a good learning opportunity for me, not only personally and professional growth, but again, just kind of saturating the industry in Houston. I think it was a game changer.
I think that's great. I definitely like agree that it depends on your personal goals and what you want to get out of something. I have been kind of on the not opposite end of that, but I personally have like volunteered and decided that it was just not something that I wanted to commit to. I'm a firm believer in weighing pros and cons of things and deciding what I can actually invest and do well at. And Renee has always been really, like, she was a great president.
Thank you.
Do you think that, so at the time that you were president of this organization and when you were kind of investing all into pouring yourself into this organization, you were a business owner. And then as you transition out of that role into your new role, how do you feel like those relationships have helped you in this new venture that you're kind of on right now?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. So the relationships, I mean, I got this job because of a relationship that I had made via networking. And that just goes to show, again, a renter and a rental company, we're not necessarily referring business. One is social, one is corporate, but just.
Or you can, some people could even say you were competitors, right? Like, and when you were.
We could, yeah. There's always something to be said for, how can I help you? How can we help them?
Mm-hmm.
But competitors in a way, and, really turning to that network that I made through that, and just making the ask of, hey, do you know of anyone who's hiring? Do you know of anyone who's looking? I think that has also helped to kind of qualify me in this new role based on the connections that I have in different cities. Associations are oftentimes nationwide. When you go to these national conferences, you're connecting with people outside of your city. And so it kind of qualified the role that I'm now doing in the different markets to be able to continue to make those connections out of such a bigger bubble than, just Houston or just Texas.
Right. Yeah. I think it just is like reiterating the point that you just never know when it's going to pay off. And you never know like what it's going to bring you long term, but there's never a downside to networking and to building those long-term relationships. Like, I think moral of the story is relationships, and long game. If we had to wrap it up in 2 words, relationships and long game.
Well, technically 3. So we had a nickel for every time we said the word relationship. I think if there's anything that you take away from this episode, and really the last 2 episodes, is that networking is so relationship centric, and it doesn't have to be the burden that it definitely can feel like oftentimes. I don't know, if you had to sum up our conversation on both of these episodes, what are like 3 or 4 takeaways?
I think one for me is listen more than you speak. So be curious and listen.
That's good.
Lead always with curiosity of others and not your credentials. Follow up in ways that are intentional, right? So let's say you are going to like send people emails after a networking event, or you're cold emailing someone, cold emailing. Be intentional about it. Like, send them voice memos, look up things that they've done, like get to know them before you even approach them. And then really just be consistent. Show up, be consistent. Rome was not built in a day. I'm going to use one of
Ooh.
Renee's things. Rome was not built in a day,
That's
and
good.
relationships are not. You've never, most people don't go on a first date with someone and then decide to get married, right? Like it's the same thing. Like you're courting, you're building relationships. It takes time. So show up, be consistent, and then just always remember that we're all women in business, right? At the end of the day, we all have feelings. We all show up in different ways, and we all just want, well, I would say all, we typically want to cheer each other on and be there for each other. So just be that hype girl, be that woohoo girl, and keep going.
I love
Even when
that.
it feels hard.
Well, and oftentimes I'm sure it will feel hard, but I think you hit it on the head. I think you hit the nail on the head. See, there we go again.
Perfect
Well,
wrap
thank
up.
you guys. Yes. It wouldn't be a perfect wrap up without a mispronounced saying.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in today. Follow us, share this episode, and tag someone that you've built a meaningful relationship with. Let them know how much you value that connection. That goes a long way. That means a lot to people, and that shares the impact. Use the hashtag small talk big impact so that we can see it and share.
Thank you guys. We will see you next time. Bye.
See you soon. Thanks for tuning in to the Inspired Collective, where we turn real talk into real impact. If today's episode resonated with you, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend who needs to hear it. Let's keep the conversation going. Follow us on Instagram and connect with a community of women who are showing up, standing out, and building with purpose. Until next time, keep leading, find your grit, and stay inspired.